She didn't notice me at first. Not when I walked in. Not when I stood behind the potted plant, sweating through my shirt like an idiot. Not even when she leaned in so close to him her necklace swung forward and tapped his fork. But I noticed her. I watched her bite her bottom lip the way she used to when she was trying not to laugh at my terrible impressions. I watched her swirl her wine with the same casual elegance she used the night we signed the mortgage. I watched her smile, once politely, then again, deeper. The second smile wasn't for manners. It was for him. And suddenly I understood everything. Not just the late-night showers, or the way she locked her phone during breakfast, or how she once called me by the wrong name and played it off like a cough. No, it was the second smile, the one I hadn't seen in months. That was the one that cracked me open. I didn't storm over. I didn't even blink. I just walked, slowly, like I had all the time in the world, until I reached their table. He looked up first, confused, like I was maybe the waiter or a manager about to offer them dessert on the house. She looked second, and that second was enough. Her face melted, not dramatically, not like in the movies, more like someone deflating from the inside. Her fingers loosened around the stem of the glass. Her mouth opened, half apology, half emergency. I didn't say a word. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out the small black box, not the one from our engagement, but the one I bought last week, when I still believed she was just tired, and I opened it. The ring was inside. I placed it on the table between their water glasses. No sound, no speech, just that cold little circle of commitment staring back at her like a question she already answered. He shifted uncomfortably. She whispered, "Miles." But I wasn't listening anymore. I had already turned. I had already let the silence speak louder than anything I could ever say. And as I walked away, past the piano player, past the bar, past the wide-eyed hostess with the clipboard, I finally smiled. But it was my second smile. And it wasn't for love. The strange part? I didn't go home after leaving that ring on the table. I didn't even get in my car. I just walked. For blocks down, I passed an old bakery I used to stop at after my night shifts years ago. It was closed, but the scent of burned sugar still lingered in the alley behind it. I stood there, inhaling like it was oxygen, like it could erase what I'd just seen, or maybe just numb it. Marcy's second smile was still playing behind my eyes like some cheap slideshow. Looping, mocking. There was a moment, stupid, I know, where I thought maybe she'd come running after me. Shoes clicking on the pavement. Voice cracking my name in the night air. Something dramatic. Something meaningful. But no, nothing. That silence followed me all the way back to the parking garage. I sat in my car with the door open, the dome light painting my legs in dull yellow, and stared at the cracked vinyl of the passenger seat. She always hated that seat. Said it made her skirt ride up. I offered to get it fixed a dozen times, but somehow, it never made the list. I don't remember starting the engine. I don't remember driving. But I do remember ending up outside her sister's house. The house she said she'd been staying at on Wednesdays for book club. Only book I saw her read in the last 6 months was a menu. There was no book club. There was never a book club. I parked across the street, engine still running. Her sister's house was dark, quiet, like a movie set that had already wrapped for the night. No lights, no music, no cars. I waited. 15 minutes. 20. 30. A man walked a dog past me. A raccoon tore into a garbage can nearby. But no Marcy. And then, right as I was about to put the car in drive, my phone lit up. "Marcy, please come home. I can explain." Explain. Explain. Explain why she met him in our booth. Explain why her smile looked brand new. Explain why I had become background noise in my own life. I didn't reply. I just turned off the engine, sat in the dark, and stared out at the empty street like it might rearrange itself into a truth I could believe in. But the truth was already clear, burned into me like the scent of caramelized failure stuck to my clothes. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a routine. I just hadn't seen it yet. But I would. Very soon. The door was already unlocked when I got home. That detail sat wrong with me, like an itch under my skin. Marcy never forgot to lock it. She used to double-check it twice, even triple-check if she was anxious. But tonight, it hung open just an inch, like an invitation or a mistake. I pushed it in slowly, like maybe the air inside would slap me. The hallway was quiet. Her heels were by the door, kicked off carelessly. That, too, was off. She always lined them up like soldiers. I found her in the kitchen, sitting at the table with a glass of something brown and cheap. Her hair was down, her eyes red but dry. She looked at me like I was the one who needed to explain something. I didn't sleep with him, she said, before I could even close the door. You need to know that. But I didn't care if she did. I pulled out a chair slowly, sat down across from her. The ring wasn't with me anymore. I didn't want it in my pocket. I didn't want it near my skin. I just watched her, studied her face. It looked tired. It looked scared, but it didn't look sorry. Not really. You lied, I said flatly. I didn't mean to, she began, but I cut her off. Stop saying that. People don't accidentally lie for months. She looked away, like the corner of the ceiling suddenly needed her full attention. I wanted to yell. I wanted to throw the glass off the table and scream until the walls bent. But I didn't, because I wasn't angry. I was cold, and that scared me more than rage. There was a long pause, filled only with the buzz of the old fridge motor. Then she finally spoke. It wasn't supposed to go this far. My laugh surprised both of us. What? The dinner dates? The flirting in public? Or the full-blown relationship behind my back? I just needed, she paused again. I needed to feel like myself again. That line. That goddamn therapy quote of a line. Like I was a phase she grew out of. Like our house, our life, our shared years were a version of her she regretted. I leaned forward, folding my hands like I was about to take a confession. How long, Marcy? She didn't answer. How long? For months. I flinched. I think I actually flinched. I was hoping for a week. A fling. A desperate mistake. But for months? That wasn't a spark. That was maintenance. That was planning. That was duplication. That was when I remembered something. A few weeks ago, I'd come home early from a meeting that got canceled. She was in the bathroom, phone pressed to her ear, door half cracked. I'd heard her say something, low, soft, almost apologetic. I thought she was talking to her sister. But now, I wasn't sure. I stood up suddenly and walked past her. She didn't stop me. Maybe she knew. Maybe some part of her wanted to be caught. In the bedroom, I didn't go for the obvious drawer. I went to the back of the closet, behind the old shoe boxes. And there it was, tucked inside a scarf she never wore. A second phone, burner style. No case. No stickers. Nothing to identify it as hers except for the wallpaper. A photo of the ocean from our trip to Oregon 2 years ago. She hated that trip. Said it was cold and boring. Why use that photo? I turned it on. No password. And right there, on the home screen, was a missed text from someone saved as C. C. He doesn't know, does he? That look on your face tonight. God, Mars. I can't stop thinking about it. That was when something in me shifted. I didn't feel like a husband anymore. I felt like a witness to my own funeral. I turned and walked back to the kitchen. She was still sitting there, sipping her drink like it was medicine. You lied to me with his phone in our house, I said. Her eyes flicked to my hand. When she saw the phone, her breath caught. Not like fear, more like guilt confirming itself. And all she could whisper was, "You weren't supposed to find that." I didn't sleep that night, not even for a second. Marcy stayed in the guest room, which was poetic, in a way, because that room used to be the nursery we never got around to finishing. She left the door open, like some kind of peace offering. I didn't close it. I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable, like I had for months without knowing it. The phone was still in my hand when the sun came up. I'd spend hours scrolling through it. Not just the texts, but the timestamps, the contact list, the calls. He wasn't saved under C for his name. No, that would have been too easy. That would have meant she cared whether I found him. I was thinking like a husband. I needed to think like a stranger now. Around 5:30 a.m., I opened the photo gallery. It was nearly empty. Only 5 photos. One was the wallpaper, that beach in Oregon she hated. 2 were random shots of coffee cups. 1 was a receipt. And the 5th was a blurry picture of her foot in a hotel bathroom mirror. I don't know why, but that one made me physically nauseous. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone gripped tight, chest hollowed out like I'd been unplugged from the wall. That's when I remembered something. Deleted photos don't vanish right away. I opened the recently deleted folder. There were 12 images. My hand started to tremble as I tapped it open. The thumbnails loaded slowly, like the phone knew it was about to break me. And it did. The first one was a mirror selfie. Marcy in a black lace top I'd never seen before, her wedding ring off. Smiling. Playful. The kind of smile she hadn't given me in over a year. The second was a hotel room bed. Messy. Sheets half pulled. Her bra on the nightstand. No people in the shot, but you didn't need to be a detective to know what it meant. The third was a selfie of them together. Him. I finally saw his face up close, and my blood ran cold, because I knew him. His name was Calder. Calder Dean. We'd worked together at the same company before he transferred out of state. Marcy met him once, at a Christmas party 3 years ago. I remembered introducing them, shaking his hand. I remembered joking that he looked like someone out of a car commercial, all symmetrical and polished. I even remembered saying to Marcy in the car afterward, "He seems like someone who gets what he wants." I hadn't thought about him since. Until now. He was the C. He was the second smile. He was the one who had been in my house, drinking my bourbon, helping me move a sofa when we replaced the carpet. The photo showed them on a rooftop somewhere. Her lipstick smudged, his hand on her hip. She wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking at him. The rage didn't hit like a fire. It was colder than that. Slower. It crept into my muscles and made my limbs feel too heavy to move. I wasn't even mad at him. Not yet. No. What broke me was that she had chosen someone I had once trusted. That she had looked at someone from my world and decided he was the one she'd rather share her real self with. I didn't confront her that morning. I didn't say a word. I left the phone face up on the dining table, right beside a half-burnt candle she used to keep for vibe. I didn't touch my keys. I didn't even change clothes. I just walked. No destination. No plan. Somewhere around noon, I found myself at a gas station outside of town, sitting on the curb eating a stale cinnamon roll from a vending machine. And that's when my phone, vibrated in my pocket. Unknown number. I stared at it for a moment, debating whether to answer. I did. A man's voice. Calm. Confident. Like someone who'd already decided how this would go. Ellis. I didn't say anything. It's Calder. Of course it was. I think we should talk. I could hear cars in the background. Wind. Maybe he was driving. Maybe he was on a rooftop somewhere again, waiting for her to show up in that black top. I swallowed hard. What could you possibly have to say to me? A long pause. Then he said, "She told me she was leaving you." And that's when I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I realized something terrifying. I was the last one to find out. I agreed to meet him. Maybe that makes me weak. Maybe that makes me pathetic. But curiosity is a dangerous thing when it festers in silence. And I had spent too many nights alone with a stomach full of unanswered questions. So when Calder texted me an address, a cafe downtown, the kind with chalkboard menus and drinks that sound like spells, I didn't hesitate. I just showed up. He was already there. Of course he was. Sitting outside at a corner table, like this was some casual catch-up between old friends. He wore a navy button-down, sleeves rolled neatly to his elbows. He even smiled when he saw me. That smile, the one that used to seem charming, now felt like it had teeth. I didn't shake his hand, didn't sit right away, just looked at him for a long, tense second and said, "You've got 5 minutes. Use them wisely." He nodded like he expected that. "I didn't plan for this to happen," he started. I rolled my eyes and finally sat down, arms crossed. He continued, "We reconnected by accident. She commented on an old post of mine. I sent her a message to say hi. That's it. At first. And then what?" I asked, my voice sharp. "She tripped and fell into your bed." He winced, like he wasn't used to being spoken to like that. "Look, I know I crossed a line, but she made it sound like she was done. Emotionally. Like you were just going through the motions." "Do you know what it's like," I cut in, "to wake up next to someone every day and not realize you've already been replaced in their head? That your name is just familiarity, not love?" Calder didn't answer. He just stared into his drink like it might explain something. And then, after a pause too long to be casual, he said something I didn't expect. "She told me she got pregnant." The world stopped. I blinked. "What?" "She said she was pregnant," he repeated, softer this time. 2 months ago." My stomach dropped. My throat closed. I had to force air back into my lungs. "No," I whispered. I told her I couldn't raise a kid right now, that I wasn't ready. She said she understood. I shook my head, eyes darting, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. "She never told me." He looked up, finally locking eyes with me. "You didn't know?" "No," I said, standing abruptly. "Because either she lied to me, or she lied to you." I stormed away without another word. My pulse was hammering. My vision was narrowing. But deep inside, under all the rage and humiliation, a seed of something more dangerous began to grow. Doubt. Back home, I didn't confront her immediately. I watched her instead. The way she stood at the sink like nothing happened. The way she folded laundry like it was just another Thursday. She hadn't cried. She hadn't begged. She hadn't even denied it. So later that night, when she went to take a shower, I did something I hadn't done in over a decade of marriage. I went through her drawers. Not her phone. Not her purse. I went through the physical spaces we always pretended were private. Her nightstand. Her old journal she said she stopped writing in. The little wooden box she kept under the bed where she stored birthday cards and receipts from hotels we once loved. And that's when I found it. A small paper envelope. No markings. Just sealed shut. Inside was a receipt. Women's Health Associates Clinic. Dated 8 weeks ago. The date hit me like a slap. Right before she left for that so-called weekend with her sister. Right before she came home quieter. Less interested in conversation. Distant in a way I now recognized as grief. But there was no baby. Just a decision I hadn't been part of. And then, taped to the back of the receipt, was a note. Her handwriting. Rushed. Barely legible. I don't want to bring life into this kind of lie. I sat down on the floor. Hard. Like my body gave out. She hadn't just been lying. She had been deciding. Without me. Without him. And maybe without herself. And the worst part? Some twisted part of me still loved her. She was making tea. That's what I remember most about that night. Not her face. Not the sound of my own breathing. Not even what I said. Just the clink of the spoon as she stirred honey into a mug she'd owned since college. That stupid green ceramic thing with the faded chip on the lip. She looked so calm, so completely unaware that I was standing behind her with an envelope in my hand that weighed more than my body ever could. I didn't say anything at first. I just placed it on the table between us. The same way I had placed the ring. The same way I had once placed a positive pregnancy test years ago, back when we still thought we were building something real. She looked at the envelope, then at me. No confusion, just slow recognition. You found it, she said, like I had discovered some secret compartment she had always known I'd open eventually. I talked to him, I said, watching her face. Calder. Her fingers tightened slightly around the mug handle, but she didn't flinch. She didn't ask what he said. That silence said more than words ever could. So, I continued, my voice almost foreign to me. You were pregnant. She didn't nod. She didn't speak. She just stared at the steam rising from her tea like it could lift her out of this room. Was it mine? I asked. And then, louder, was it even mine, Marcy? I don't know, she whispered. That broke something in me. Not the betrayal. I'd already bled that out. Not the dishonesty. I was drowning in it. No, it was the apathy. That numb, exhausted way she said it. Like she was tired of carrying the weight of all the lies she had layered on top of each other. One for me, one for him, and one for herself. I didn't tell you, she said finally, because I didn't want to give either of you the chance to decide. I blinked. You didn't think I deserved to say? I didn't think you'd want one. That hit me harder than the rest. Because maybe she was right. Maybe if she had told me, if she'd come home crying with a test in her purse and shame in her eyes, I would have shut down. Maybe I would have told her to leave. Maybe I would have let that baby become a weapon between us. I didn't know, and that made it worse. So you terminated it, I said. Alone, while I thought you were at a cabin reading murder mysteries with your sister. She opened her mouth, but I stopped her with a raised hand. No more lies. No more half-truths. You want to stay in this house, in this marriage? You put everything on the table. Every version of you that you've been hiding. Every timeline. Every name. Every date. Every text. I want it all. Or you walk. She looked at me for a long time. Not with anger. Not even guilt. Just weariness. The kind you see in war veterans and hospice nurses. I met him again in January, she began. It was supposed to be coffee. Just coffee. But he asked if I was happy, and I realized I didn't know how to answer. I stayed silent. I wanted her to keep going. I needed it now. The full picture, the ugly truth. No more guessing. No more detective work. We didn't sleep together until March, she continued. But it wasn't just physical. It was stupid. Romantic. Like teenagers who think they're the first people to ever fall in love. You loved him? I asked. I loved how I felt with him, she corrected. He didn't know my flaws yet. He hadn't seen me spiral at 2 a.m. or panic over nothing or cry because a grocery store ran out of the yogurt I like. I saw all of that, I said. She nodded, looking away. And maybe that's why I didn't want to be seen anymore. We sat there in silence for a long time. Just breathing the same air, orbiting the same pain. Then she added one more thing. I haven't spoken to him since I made the decision. He wanted to be involved, but I told him it was over. For good. Because you regretted it? I asked. No, she said. Because I couldn't destroy 2 lives just to feel alive for 5 minutes. That's when the tears came. Not hers. Mine. Because I realized something brutal and true. She had burned us both. But the part that hurt the most wasn't the infidelity, or the lies, or the erased child. It was that I still wanted to forgive her. And I didn't know if that made me loyal or pathetic. The letter arrived 3 days later. Folded in half, unmarked envelope, no return address, just sitting inside our mailbox like it belonged there. No knock, no signature, just a slow-burning fuse disguised as paper. Marcy handed it to me when I came in from the driveway. Her hands were shaking. She didn't say anything, but I knew who it was from before I even opened it. Of course it was Calder. He had that kind of audacity, the kind that hides behind polite grammar and clean handwriting. I sat at the kitchen table again, in the same seat where she used to read recipes and sip wine. The same table where I'd placed the ring and then the receipt. It was becoming my confessional, my battlefield, my courtroom. The envelope was sealed with a piece of medical tape, probably all he could find. That detail stuck with me for some reason. Inside, a single sheet of lined notebook paper, torn from a spiral. His handwriting was small, precise, controlled. Ellis, I know I don't deserve your time, and I won't pretend to understand what you're going through. But I want you to know something that she probably won't tell you. She ended it for your sake, not mine. She told me she still loved you. She cried when she said it, and I believed her. I thought she would leave you. Honestly, I hoped she would. But she said she couldn't. Not because of guilt, but because you were the only person who ever stayed when she broke apart. I didn't want to write this. I wanted to forget her. But I can't. I loved her too. And I still do. I'm sorry for everything. See, I read it twice. Then a third time. Then I laughed. Loud, hard, bitter. Not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly wrong. A love triangle where no one won. No romantic climax. No villain worth hating. Just a slow-motion implosion where everyone thought they were saving someone else while pushing them off a cliff. When I handed her the letter, she didn't ask what it said. She didn't need to. She read it in silence, eyes scanning fast, lips pressed tight. Then she folded it neatly and placed it on the table. Well, she said, eyes fixed on me. What happens now? That was the question, wasn't it? We'd already passed the storm. This was the flood. Quiet, slow, suffocating. Forgiveness wasn't even the issue anymore. It was identity. Who were we now? Husband and wife? Roommates? 2 ghosts haunting a house filled with expired memories? I don't know, I said honestly. I don't know what I am with you anymore. She nodded, as if she'd expected that. I haven't known who I am for years, she whispered. With you, without you. I just pretend. That's what I'm good at. I wanted to scream at her for that. Pretend? Our wedding, our late-night drives, our quiet Sundays watching reruns. All pretend? But I didn't scream. I was tired of noise. Tired of acting like pain equals clarity. So I told her something else instead. I want space. Her eyes widened slightly, just enough for me to see it caught her off guard. You want me to leave? No, I said. I want me to leave. She looked confused, but I could see a part of her also understood. There was nothing for me to control anymore. Not the narrative, not the past, not even the damage. Staying in the same house was like standing in the ruins of a house fire, coughing on soot and pretending the couch still existed. I'll go to that Airbnb near the lake, I said. The one we used to talk about buying before we realized we couldn't afford dreams. I expected her to argue, to ask me to stay, to reach across the table and grab my hand. But all she said was, okay. I packed a duffel bag, just the essentials, some clothes, my laptop, a book I hadn't finished in 2 years. I looked around the bedroom before I left, at the photo frames still standing on the dresser like they didn't know they'd become lies, at the dent in the wall from where the doorknob always hit it, proof of years, of real life, of normalcy. When I stepped outside, the air felt wrong. It wasn't fresh. It was empty, and somehow that was worse. As I backed out of the driveway, I caught a glimpse of her through the window. She was standing in the hallway, arms at her sides, staring straight ahead. Not crying, not watching, just frozen. Maybe that's all we ever were in the end. 2 people too frozen to leave, and too scared to stay. The lake was quiet. Not peaceful, not still. Just honest. Honest in the way only nature can be, where nothing hides, but nothing apologizes either. The wind cut through the pines with a low, constant whisper, and the water rippled just enough to remind you the world kept moving even when you didn't. I spent the first 2 days doing nothing. I didn't call anyone. I didn't answer texts. I sat on the porch in a hoodie that still smelled like our house and stared at the sky like it might spell out instructions. I ate cold pasta and drank too much coffee. I slept at weird hours and woke up with dreams that didn't make sense. Marcy was in all of them. Sometimes younger, sometimes older. Sometimes she smiled like she used to. Sometimes she looked right through me. But on the third day, I found something. Not a message. Not a twist. Just clarity. It came in the form of an old journal I didn't even remember packing, leather-bound, nearly full. I must have started it years ago and abandoned it halfway through. Inside were little things, grocery lists, stupid jokes, pieces of conversations. But in the back, buried between half-torn pages, was an entry I'd written after our second anniversary. It said, "She forgets to charge her phone and overwaters every plant. But she listens when I speak and makes soup when I'm sick. She's messy, but she's real. And for the first time in my life, I think I'm building something that matters." That version of her, and of me, felt like strangers. But not the kind you fear, the kind you miss. That night, I walked out to the edge of the dock barefoot, journal in one hand, a bottle of water in the other. The stars were spread across the lake like static on a TV screen. I looked up and whispered something stupid like, "Now what?" And the wind answered by not answering. So I wrote. I wrote for hours. Not about what she did. Not about what I lost. But about what I still had, a voice. A spine. A memory that could hurt and heal at the same time. I wrote the version of me that didn't just survive the wreckage, but stood up and climbed out of it. By the time the sun came up, I knew what I had to do. Not go back and pretend nothing happened. Not erase the pain, but invite something new into the ruins. Something honest. Something slow. So I drove home. She was in the kitchen when I walked in. Same mug, same chipped lip, same quiet eyes. But she looked different. Not younger. Not softer. Just unmasked. We didn't rush to each other. There were no dramatic hugs. No violins. No desperate apologies. I simply said, "Do you want to try again?" She stared at me. Tears welled. Not of guilt this time, but of relief. And maybe fear. The healthy kind. "Yes," she whispered. "But not from where we left off." "No," I said. "From where it all fell apart. So we can build something stronger." We both knew it wouldn't be easy. There were still cracks in the walls and ghosts in the furniture. But for the first time in a long time, we stood side by side. Not as enemies or strangers, but as two broken people choosing each other on purpose. Forgiveness isn't a magic trick. It doesn't erase what happened, but it's a seed. And sometimes, if you plant it right, deep in the soil of truth and time, it grows into something even stronger than what was there before. We gave up pretending. And finally, we started living.